Welcome everyone to Out on a Limb podcast, where you can tell we have a special guest today, Maria Fink, who is in the Charleston area. So we have her live in studio, and we're super excited to get to know her a little bit better and to hear all of the cool things that she is doing and the beautiful being that she is. So Maria, we met you originally at Bliss. Spiritual co-op that we've mentioned several times on the podcast. And the reason that we met was because we were headed to a galactic gathering.
Yes.
And that is where we all sort of started expanding our understanding of the galactics. And I do want to get into the galactics with you because that's always fun. And our audience seems to like that topic, as do I. But tell us about...
Timely.
For sure. But I want to hear more about your background. Obviously, well, you haven't spoken yet, but you'll see that she has an accent.
Yes.
So tell us about where you come from, how you came about, this understanding on your spiritual journey and all of that good stuff. Go back with us a little bit.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's a happy place here. I like it. And yes, we met at Bliss where 4.5 years, I think, I say we started because you were there from the beginning. We started the Charleston Starseeds gatherings where I tried to get together people who knew they are starseeds or people who were trying to find out more. And this happened because it was my deep desire to connect with people that had the same interests as I did and spoke the same language. And this came after a period of loneliness where I was exploring the various spiritual modalities quite by myself.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
That's lonely, yeah.
Exactly. And as you said, I have an accent. I was born in Romania and I lived in Romania till 5 years ago. This August is 5 years since I moved here.
Wow.
And I started my self-discovery journey, I think it was 12 years ago, and it was by a complete accident. And I had a snowboard accident and I injured my lower back. And a friend of mine told me to go to a chiropractor. And it was my first experience with someone telling me that the body is connected to my emotions and so on. Wow. And then this guy told me to go to yoga because it will help my back. And I went to yoga purely because I wanted to feel better. But I had an instructor who used to speak in the beginning at the end of the class, and I didn't understand anything. So I just thought, this makes no sense. He was talking about illusion and I didn't understand anything. So I slept during his speeches. And after about 6 months, one day I realized, oh my God, I understand what he's saying. It totally clicked and it was a surprise.
Wow.
Exactly. And then it was about at the same time, I was working in media and I was doing talent management, and I wanted to understand better the people I was representing because I was an agent. And we decided in our company to do coaching course. And during that coaching course, I learned something very, very important: to ask questions, which I didn't know how to do before. And it just opened my mind. And I think it was my path, to go step by step. And after that, I decided to take a hypnosis class. And in the hypnosis class, I learned a lot about the subconscious mind. And then from the hypnosis class, I decided to go next step. And I went to study a past life regression therapy class. And I actually studied here in the USA, in Mount Shasta, with some people who were coming from London.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been beautiful.
It was beautiful, but back then I didn't know that Mount Shasta is one of the strongest energetical points of Earth. So I just went there completely unaware that it was actually an opening for me it was the first time when I heard about telos and inner earth beings. And although it seemed a little bit weird, I was open, I was like, why not? Maybe there's a city here that I don't see. And I remember on the way back in the airport, I was just reading about Agartha and it all clicked. I was like, yeah, maybe, why not? And I went back to Bucharest and I used to meditate every day and just walk the streets and go in the park and spend time in nature. And in one of these meditations, I connected with my galactic family. And I like to say this, I cried with 3 rows of tears because it was literally how it happened, because I felt that is my family. And I just said, take me back. And they said, no, we can't, because you volunteered to go back to Earth. And it made no sense to me. What do you mean I volunteered? So it took a while till I connected more with my Sirius counterpart, because my galactic family is on Sirius. And I was able to see how at one point, when Earth put up a calling for help, I decided to jump in and to go to Earth. But because my vibration from Sirius was not attuned to the vibration of Earth, I decided to go back in time 5,000 years and have a few incarnations on Earth. So I'm ready for this time of ascension. And I was working on the subject of time back then. And this was just mind blowing because it was playing with my mind. What is time when you see that you can project yourself back through time and space, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the same time, I did theta healing classes. And I think that was the most important class in my expansion, because I cleared a lot of negative thought patterns, of emotions. I cleared a lot of what I picked up from my parents and my family, a lot from my past lives. And also in one class, I decided to work only on my ears. And for 3 weeks, I focused on my ears. And that's when my clairaudience went up, because I was hearing voices.
Wow.
And I could hear voices that would tell me what's wrong with people's bodies. And at some point I had to ask, who are you? Who's talking to me and telling me all this diagnosis? But I wouldn't tell people this diagnosis because I'm not a doctor, but I would get an intuitive insight about what is wrong with them. So yeah, right now, this is what I do. I help people understand what's going on with their health, what are the mental and emotional causes for their physical illnesses, and I hope I can improve their state of health.
Can I just say,
Mm-hmm.
and as a recommendation, because I've been there and done that with Maria, and if I was having a nervous breakdown, and I mean, and when I say a nervous breakdown, it's not like your mind and all that kind of stuff. It's like energetically, my body was so locked up.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just knew if I went to a doctor, they were going to just look at me like there's nothing wrong.
Right.
And I would have been so stuck. And meanwhile, I am literally shaking. It's like there are so many volts of electricity going through my body and nothing's moving and stuff. And it was,
And you were out of town and you didn't, it wasn't like you could go to your family doctor either.
Yeah. And I was taking care of my mom, and, like the whole thing was crazy. And it just, how synchronicity works. It timed out perfect.
Yeah.
And Maria got on the phone with me. And so here we're doing it long distance.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like the revelations that came out, the emotions that came out. It was just like, whoa. And then, there was another time that, you had said, hey, when that comes up again, shake your system and do this and do that. And I was able to do it on my own. And so it was like, it was really, really cool. But like, I would have never come to all of that. I don't know how I would have come to all of that. I should put it that way, because it was so much deep down stuff.
Yeah.
So there is a real application, when you're going to a doctor and they just don't get it. Yeah. Then you've got to find an energy healer, someone who can see what's going on inside of you and do those shifts that just are so necessary. Right. Anyway, go ahead. I just
wanted to ask, you said you left us hanging. You said, you asked, who is it that's helping me to diagnose and figure this out? Was it the Syrians or who was it? Somebody else?
No, back then it was, the voice that I heard was Paracelsus. And I literally had to go on Google and see, okay, who's Paracelsus? And I saw it was a Swiss pharmacist who lived maybe in the 16th century. I don't know, but he was telling me things about the body. And then in time, I started to ask more. One important thing that I do is intuitive writing. I started it maybe in 2016. I don't remember very well. And back then I would write just a few words. Mm-hmm. And then in time, I started to write sentences, and now I can write full pages. But I think that also helped with my developing of my intuition and receiving messages. And right now, I mostly receive messages from the white lions of Sirius. I feel that all the time there are 4 white lions with me. And also Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. I feel how they're going like in and out. Mm-hmm. But at times when I work with clients, various beings pop in. Maybe they're guides, maybe some saints, maybe other ascended masters. Some beings that I don't know, but are benevolent, because I always set an intention that we all connect with benevolent beings. Yeah.
So when you were connected to the 16th century pharmacist guy,
Paracelsus.
Did you know that? You've heard of him?
Like, I studied him for some reason. I don't remember why.
I avoided those classes in high school. I have no idea. But when obviously he would have had a different vocabulary, and so we understand that even though some of the stuff comes out through, I guess, not conscious channeling, but trance channeling type of stuff, it still has to go through your mind. Yes. So it still has to work with the verbiage and the vocabulary that you have. So did you have any difficulty interpreting what some of those quote unquote diagnoses were? Or how did you get over that hurdle?
No, because I would receive words that I would understand. And if I wouldn't, I would just immediately go on Google and see if that's an illness, mm-hmm. I remember I was working with a woman and I heard something about her womb, but I didn't know the illness per se, but when I looked at it, it was what she was experiencing. But as I said, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not saying these illnesses out loud, even though I can hear them, but I'm always saying the emotions that are causing them. And also when I connect with people, I can see the persons that these stuck emotions are connected to. Maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your mother's side, maybe it's old fight you had with your sister and so on. And I would always say the emotions and the thought patterns, because I believe that if we connect with our bodies, we can know in time what is causing our illnesses. It's just no one is telling us.
Yeah.
That there
that we can do this.
Yes, that we are a multi-dimensional being. There's more to us than this body. We are a soul. We also have a tool, which is the mind. We have also the emotions, and they are all connected, and we cannot separate them. And when we have a physical illness, it's just the body showing us that there is something disharmonious between all these fields.
I love how you just said that, how the mind is a tool.
Yes.
Instead of, because people think, well, my mind, that's a part of me. That's the thinking part. No, it's the tool.
Yes, it's a tool we have as humans. That's what I believe.
And we can harness it. good or bad, right? We can harness that
Oh,
mind.
absolutely.
Yeah, and it can drive us crazy, when
Right.
we give it too much focus to it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Now, during that story, thank you, Maria. That was very thorough and really fascinating. I didn't hear anything about a dark night of the soul.
We always
And
like to
We like
the
to
darkness.
we like to talk about that with our
Whether you had
guests
it or
too. Yeah, because a lot of people are going through their own awakening out there in our audience, and a lot of people have experienced that. Did you have anything like that, or anything you would have?
Yes. How would I
Ooh.
miss the dark night of the soul?
And you're okay sharing that with us?
Yes. Yes.
Yay. Okay.
So
Get out the popcorn.
the
No, I'm kidding.
dark night of the soul started when my mother died, and that was 7 years ago. And that was during my sabbatical year. I took a sabbatical year thinking I would just focus on myself and on my expansion and learn a lot of new things. Well, I didn't know that my sabbatical year would be a roller coaster one. I would dive deep into myself and my emotions, but because of something unexpected, and that was my mother's death. And after that, I think I started to experience depression at that time, but I wasn't aware of it, or I wasn't able to cope with the grief. So I just harnessed all that emotion. And when I divorced from my ex-husband, everything exploded. It was just a lot of suffering. I was living in another country. The pandemic started. I didn't want to go back to my country. I couldn't go back to my country. So I just had to sit with all these emotions. So yeah, I think 2020 was the year of the dark night of my soul. And in that year, luckily, I had a tool which helped me, which was mandalas of light. And you guys know mandalas of light?
I don't.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool, though.
Yeah, the mandalas of light help balance your brain. You're supposed to create a shape through a certain process, and then through coloring, you're balancing your emotional field. And I was doing 2 mandalas a day, and I think they kept me sane, I suppose. If I was sane, I don't know. I think I was. But I was dealing with a lot of sadness. So my dark night of the soul was a lot of changes and a lot of sadness. Oh, and I forgot to say, which is very important, before I divorced, my father also died. So it was a lot of, it was a lot of change in a very short time. And 2020 was just...
And you were
the
over
explosion.
here.
Yes, I was here.
And then the world totally changes
Yeah.
on its axis. Like,
Wow.
Exactly. My father died in December 2019. And 3 months later, the world was
Different.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So definitely that was difficult. And because my father died and I divorced my husband, I lost very soon 2 important masculine figures in my life. So that brought to the surface a lot of work with the masculine. And I navigated that for I think 2 years, and it all ended completely surprising and unexpected. I say it was a gift with a song. A friend of mine sent me a song. It's called La Luna. Is a sang song. How do you say it? Sang, right? By Ajit Kaur.
Sang.
Yeah. And it's a concert. And in this concert, she invites both men and women to sing with her. And when the men started to sing, I felt all their pain. And it was like 2 systems crumbled for me while I was on the couch. And that it was patriarchy, or how do you say it?
Patriarchy.
Patriarchy.
Yeah.
And also feminism. They just didn't make sense to me anymore. It was like the castle fell, and I realized that we cannot be against each other, men against women. The only way forward is together. But for that, we both need to heal. And since that moment, there was a moment of clarity, but clarity that came through emotion.
Mm.
It's just so obvious to me when I see the wound being activated in both men and women, when they have to deal with lack of trust for women, generally not trusting the men, and not being seen as a woman, and men not being allowed to express their power. I think this is a great suffering
that
coming
is
from
a
this.
Great message. And I see that, like how it's so out of balance right now. It just is.
Well, it's so interesting because it's been out of balance for many, many years. It's been a patriarchal society. And then, I don't know, roughly the 60s and 70s, we started to swing the pendulum the other way. And I think we've gone a bit too far in that direction where we're kind of male bashing and wanting to make men more feminine, perhaps, or all these different things. And we're waiting, waiting for it to swing back to normal, where we can love and respect both the male and the female in all of us and come to balance in all of us and bring those aspects of each in ourselves individually.
I see that more in my son's generation, though. Like he's very close with his friends. And it's like, it's okay if you get upset, if you cry, it's okay. At the same time, they talk about, well, he's a beta male, he's an alpha male, and they're very aware of that kind of stuff. But his attitude towards women, like, it so shocks me, where it's just like, why would I be interested in that, woman who's like hanging all over these guys? I want someone who has a mind, who, and there's so much more of that balance, those souls that have been coming through to shift that balance to, sanity. Because, I never quite understood, why wouldn't you like the man, I mean, it's like, there's a space, there's a place for that. There's a need. It's fun. Anyway.
And just the fact that they know these terms, that we embody certain archetypes, like a beta male or an alpha male, and we can switch from one to another. That's I think that's showing a great improvement in our collective understanding of these energies and how we can go from not one role to another, but from one type of energy to another. Because we are not the same throughout our lives. We have so many facets and, unfortunately, so many masks. But my hope is that slowly we can give up these masks and just bring in and shine our light.
Right. And in speaking to a number of other spiritual leaders and people that I respect, the word seems to be, living in integrity and authenticity now. Those are a couple of words that are so important. And talking about masks and stuff, it's just about being free and liberated enough to live your authentic truth. Like, who are you really? And in the book, The Journey Within, I reference that a lot because that was what I tried to encourage people to do, is to drop fear and work on your courage to uncover who you really are. We don't even know who we are. And we're afraid to investigate who we are because we might not like that person or that what we discover. Right. But there's so many layers of what other people think we are. And we feel that we have to live up to that. That we don't even know who we are.
Well, I was listening to a podcast on my way up here, and it's so funny. I've heard other people say this. I can't believe that I'm listening to Russell Brand and going, oh my God, he makes sense. But he was interviewing this guy who is called Drinker Critic or something like that. They're the Drunk Critic, or I
saw that episode. I haven't watched it.
Oh my God, it was so good. So this guy was talking about Hollywood, the movies. He's a movie critic, and he's a movie critic for the love of the genre, of the, the creation of the movie, and when stars were stars and the purity and all that kind of stuff. So he's absolutely like fabulous. And their discussion got into authenticity, because he's like, I don't review a movie and say, well, because of my viewpoint of men are supposed to be this and women are that, I'm going to bash this movie or whatever. He's like, no, I look at it, the art form and, the content and all this stuff. And he said, but that authenticity is what or maybe Russell was saying that authenticity in you is what gives you all of these people who are watching you, who just love it. And then they jump to Joe Rogan, which, he's been super divisive for a lot of people, but they said, that's why Joe Rogan can do what he does, because he's being authentic. He doesn't care whether you like him or not.
Right.
He's doing his gig. And that's where Russell Brand learned to be who he is. And he's just doing his thing. And there's so much more, I think, balance between that. And you're not sitting there going, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm that. They're just being more or less.
Well, I told you before that I worked with stars, with various people working in television or actors in Romania. And it was very interesting for me to observe that some people, we call it cross the screen, which means they are very magnetic to other people. And I was wondering why at times, because there were some people who were extremely hardworking and determined. And one of my understandings back then, when I didn't know too many things about energy, was that they are authentic, they are raw, they are just pure, and they don't have these masks. And people like that.
Yes.
They resonate with that.
Yes.
And you can create this persona and work really hard, but I think people connect from the heart and they feel it. That's the real you or not. And talking about authenticity, this is something I've been focused in the last 2 years, because I asked myself many times, and the pandemic helped me a lot. That was my breakthrough, because I was on the couch and I was asking myself, what is my truth? Do I really want to wear a mask? Do I want to take a vaccine? What is it that I believe in? And once I knew exactly what I believe in, I said, no matter what will happen, I will stick to my truth. And that is what brought up the subject of authenticity and who I am and standing in my truth.
Yeah.
And since then, I like to use words like sincerity, being transparent, being empowered to say the truth, because there is a certain easiness that comes with just being yourself and not wearing some masks.
Well, you don't have to think twice, do I mean, like, it's like if you don't lie, white lie is one thing, and that's to be sensitive to people, instead of being radically honest, which is different than brutally honest. Radically honest is a good thing, but it's that you don't have to watch your back. You don't have to, you just, like I've told people, I love wearing my heart on my sleeve. And yes, there's going to be disappointments and I'm going to get hurt and people are going to, and it's going to make me curl up into a fetal ball and just cry. But how I get to experience so much more emotion and freedom that way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
but this is life. Yeah.
And in terms of self-worth, a lot of times we're like, we think to ourselves, if they really knew me, they wouldn't like me. You know what I mean? If they
I know people like
if
me.
they really knew who I was, but what I mean is that we don't allow people to see who we really are.
Right.
And when you do that, then you know that the people who are in your circle love you for who you are. And that's a beautiful thing. Not everybody's going to be your cup of tea. That's okay. Yeah. You don't need to have everybody in the earth to be your friend.
How boring would that be?
Can't keep up with it.
It would be so vanilla. Like it would just be, if we were all, vibing the same way, it's the whole contrast thing.
But when we talk about how people are gravitate to authenticity, what we're talking about is energy.
Yes.
And what's fascinating to me when we do these pet sessions, and I hear this from the horses more than any of the other animals, because horses, they don't play that. They don't care, right? So you can walk up to a horse and be like, oh, it's okay. I'm just going to give you this little shot. It's for your own good, I promise. And you're inside going, I don't want to.
I'm getting ready to give a 2,000-pound animal a shot.
Yeah. And they read your energy. And they've told us, if your words are saying one thing and your energy is saying something else, we're going to believe your energy.
Yes.
So it's about the energy. If you're exuding this energy, and if your words aren't matching up, people know it.
And I believe children know it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's why they are so confused and so bewildered many times by the adults' behavior. And this is how we learn to put up a lot of masks just to survive as children in the adults' world. which is extremely confusing at times. But my belief is that more and more children will incarnate, and they will be completely connected to the energy of truth, and they will have their third eyes open, and we will not be able to fool and manipulate and dissimulate and lie in front of these kids, because they will just know the truth. So
Right.
I'm very excited for this new wave of
Right.
Well,
children.
and that also makes sense with the progression of humans, because I go back to whenever there's a thing on Gen Z, I study it, like because I'm trying so much to understand my son's psychology. He's just such a breath of fresh air, and it's not that he's on any spectrum or anything like that. It's just I would love for him to go out and get, he's graduated with his data sciences degree. I would love for him to go out and use it, and he's like, but Mom, I just would like to have this summer. And, I really don't need a lot of money for all of these things, because I want to balance that with feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh my God, he's throwing my crap back at me, even though I haven't sat there and literally preached that to him, but I guess he's picked it up. But that's part, because your son has that same thing.
Same thing.
It is a part of that generation, because they say that they had so much data coming at them, so much, they were able to learn how to disseminate bullshit so much more quickly. And so to understand authenticity. So it makes sense. It's like the right time. If those kids came in, 20 years ago, it would be so abrupt. Mm-hmm. But with the way things are going, for them to step in makes complete sense. And thank God they're coming in, because they're the ones that are going to be really handling things when we are, really old.
When we're wheeling ourselves around in wheelchairs.
We
Exactly.
want them around.
But like you said, they're seeing through the BS. They realize that just going to a 4-year college to get a degree, to work in the grind, to have an office with no window and just earn a living, and so that you can
no future, no promise of security.
Right. They're not for it. I mean, college, I think, especially COVID really killed college when they were paying the same price and doing it virtually and not getting any of that.
I'm sorry. We need a total overhaul.
Correct. And
it was coming. It was coming.
Mm-hmm.
It was so clear.
COVID did a lot. Well, that was the great cleansing, or what was the title for that? Because there's or the way to describe what COVID, because COVID came in for a purpose.
Oh, for sure.
All that it was doing to cleanse, it was waking people up. It was giving them time to pause.
Resetting. I mean, every aspect of society, was reset. Yes. I mean, you had corporate CEOs that all they knew, granted they made their millions and billions and whatever, but this was the first time that it was acceptable to do their work at the house and actually understand a family dynamic, which they didn't quite maybe not understood in the first place. Now they have this family dynamic under them, and they're like, why do I want to go back to some corporate office? Who cares if I got a corner window and I get to see out over the city? I don't get to see my family.
And
sorry.
No, so take that and break that down in every level. Sure, we have a lot of unemployment, but maybe that's a good thing, and maybe I've not really put all this together, formulated this solid, but maybe that's really a good thing, because it has dislodged people in a way that they can explore for themselves, where before they couldn't explore for themselves because
what shook them out of their comfort zone.
They were under a grind. They were under the pressure of somebody else's constraint, and now they can put their own constraints on themselves. So I mean, we're seeing
it's the red or blue
the benefits of it, maybe you could call it, but we're seeing that edge now where things are starting to balance out, and we're starting to see more and more, struggle, yes, but we're starting to see more self evolution versus I got to do this all the rest of my life, and that's all I'll ever know, and blah, 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 blah.
Well, they wouldn't have stepped out of their comfort zone until they were forced, and now they're appreciating it. Were you going to say something else, Maria?
Yeah, I wanted to say that also probably they wondered, who are my kids? Who's my wife or husband? How is my relationship to my parents? How is my relationship to myself? Because many people were forced all of a sudden to spend time with their family and realize that they don't know their family.
Some don't like them.
Some don't like them, exactly. And some
Yeah.
don't like themselves and their
Yeah.
reactions. So
Yeah.
it was
Right.
a great gift in disguise, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is why we shouldn't judge things, because sometimes things that look like they are yucky and negative are really for our best interest and our
And
growth.
even if they look like they happen from nefarious purposes and reasons and whatever, that still, it does this shift that benefits us.
Mm.
Everything needs a catalyst to start.
That's
Yes,
it. Right.
And that was a catalyst.
I believe the same for many systems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears here and let's talk about light language.
Yes.
Because I know that, Maria, you use light language
Mhm.
in your healing and also in the beautiful meditations. She's
Mhm.
part of our group that we've talked about before that meets on Sunday nights, the
Mhm.
13 of us, and she does beautiful meditations for
Thank
our
you.
group and light language healings and clearings and all sorts of things. So tell us how that started for you.
Well, I told you before that I studied and practiced theta healing, and I love this method because it helps you discover the negative thoughts in your mind and shift them and also work with the emotions. But I thought for a long time, I had this, I want more from my method, from whatever I'm doing, because theta healing was very mental. And I thought I would like something where there's the heart that is involved. And, you wish for it and the universe will deliver it. And because I was going through so much heartbreak in 2020, I say that there was nothing left to break. My heart was open, literally. And my belief is that light language cannot flow through you unless you open your heart chakra. So it started to come through me. I was very resistant to speak it and to let the energy move through my fingers. And in 2021, I used to have such pain in my fingers that at one point I couldn't lift a glass.
Oh.
So I asked two people that are intuitive, what should I do? What's wrong with my fingers? And one of them said, I see you doing these signs. It's like deaf people language.
Sign language?
Sign language, yeah.
Oh
But
my
she said, but
gosh.
it's not that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know what you mean. And then another guy, he just held my hands and he said, oh, you need to move them. You need to let this energy move through you. So back then I was living near a forest, and every day I would go out in this forest and I would try to hide so nobody sees me. And I would just speak it. And at times it was very intense. At times it was just like a flow of energy. But one day, so I was hearing Hathors, and Hathors are with me.
And the
one
Hathors are connected to the Venusians.
Exactly. And one day I just went into this forest and I said, you know what? I open myself to you. If you're here, just give me a sign right now and do what you have to do. And I opened my eyes, and on this tree in front of me, there was a huge heart, somebody carved the heart.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And I was like, "Ooh, that's my sign." And it took a few more months, and then I had the courage to have a class at Bliss. And after that class, I went home, and I couldn't sleep for many hours because the energy was just moving through all my body. But I was very, very grateful. And I realized, oh my gosh, if I do this, I just need to step aside. It's just so easy, And I was like, it's just such a beautiful tool. I just need to get my ego on the side a little bit and let this energy go through me. And since then I started to combine them, both theta healing and using light language. And I started in time to develop a method, which right now I call Dhyana healing, just as my site is called. And I believe in the power of light language because surpasses the mind,
Mhm.
and you just feel it in your body. And I like that in my method, I combine them both. I combine the mind, but then I use the power of light language to just clear or download whatever is needed. So this is how I started to use it. Should I say what it is, or
I
you
like
said
how
it
you-
before?
No, I'm
created your own
curious
thing.
what your perspective is, but also it started then with your hands and body and then it progressed to your voice, or how
No,
did
it
that work?
started with both.
Okay, at the same time.
Yes, with both. But I was very resistant at doing it with my fingers.
Why?
My ego, I don't know.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
it feels so good when your hands just move and you're just like,
Yeah. I think it was because at times I can feel an energy moving down, and it's a sense of losing your control and
Mhm.
offering your body to this energy that goes through you, and the ego is still there saying,
I
"What are you
get that.
doing?"
Yeah.
Sure. So what is your definition of light language? How do you view it?
I think it's a vibration download that surpasses the mind. And just as I said, it comes through people. If their heart is open, it cannot be taught. It can only be activated or remembered.
Mm.
I believe many people can speak it. They just don't know. And I believe it has a huge impact on your emotional body and on your DNA.
Mhm.
That's my understanding right now. It might shift in time. I don't know, but
I like
this-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not like married into it. It's just, so do you think that the people who are able to speak it, that they've had some galactic connection, or do you think that there's some other definable reason that maybe you haven't come across as to who would just naturally be able to do it or not?
Well, it can come from the galactics. It can come from ascended masters. It can
Mhm.
come from angel beings,
Well, in the church, they call it,
Healers or
fairies.
yeah,
From dragons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
exactly.
right. Well, the church
And
calls it speaking in tongues,
Speaking
and
in
that's the
tongues.
Holy Spirit. So
Yeah.
that's
Exactly.
essentially source.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, when it started coming through me, it wasn't during a galactic session. It was actually during a surrogate healing session we were doing for a client,
Mhm.
and it was almost shamanic that
Mhm.
came through for healing for this client. So, and it is that space you enter into to allow that to flow is a very, I mean, it's the deepest point of surrender
Yes.
that you experience, because when it first came in, I'm already in a trance state, and I could feel the energy shift and flow, and it is such a deep shift in that energy. And even as I sit here and I talk about it, I get
Mhm.
chills about it, because it's coming from a place that is so aligned, purposeful, and heartfelt, as you say, that once it happens, you can't turn it off.
You guys are talking about it, and I can feel this pressure
Yeah.
building up right here. It's just like,
you can't turn it off. And we've known several people in our group that one in particular that messaged me one early morning. She said, "I can't make it stop. Here's a recording of it." And she said she woke up with this at like 5 o'clock in the
What was
morning,
going on?
and she couldn't stop speaking light language until like 7 o'clock the following night, or
Yeah.
that night. So once it started for her, it just kept going. And it's,
It happened to me too. And one day it happened to be in the supermarket in front of the Jello shelf. And I just couldn't stop it. And then I was wondering why. And I realized because there was a need to shift something in the vibration of those products, which are not the most supporting for health.
Right.
When you see their colors, like your window.
Yeah.
When we talked about that at Bliss, the other mutual friend we have said, I just whip out my cell phone. So
Yeah.
people think I'm speaking in a foreign language.
Right.
Yeah.
oh my God, that's so smart.
Like she'll be at the produce aisle and it'll start coming out, and she'll just pick up her phone and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I can speak it wherever, and I do not care what people think. And I think that's just as I said, the gift of COVID. It is what it is. What you think it is not my concern right now.
That's right. It's the ultimate surrender, really.
Yeah,
So I'm still undercover. Like I'm not confident with it.
I don't know that I would be confident enough to speak light language in the grocery store. Go in there without a mask, no problem.
Yeah.
But speaking light
Touch
language,
the fruit.
Blessing the fruit with light language. Maybe another thing.
Yeah.
that's
I
interesting.
don't know if I could do that. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I just think it's so fascinating. So we know that there are different types of light language, dialects.
Mhm.
And so you've identified, did they tell you, or how did you identify which one you do? And do you do one or do you do several? Or are you expanding your library?
I do several, and I started with the Hathors, and the Hathors sound a very particular way, and I can tell when they come through me. But most of it is coming from my Sirius team. And I can also tell when they are Pleiadians and Mantis. This is what I can identify. And also I asked in a channeling through Will, and this is the information that I received, that these are the languages that I speak right now, but they will become more in time. I don't know, maybe Arcturians, we shall see.
Because essentially it's just energy. It's energy frequency that's expressing itself via your body and your voice box.
Yes, that was my drum.
Yes, that was interesting.
The drum
You
just
heard
popped.
that?
The drum just popped.
Somebody just said true.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because they are to listen to them. So there's this woman who did a library of them, and to listen to each one, it's like you kind of tune in if you haven't, like, if you don't know who's coming through, like I've asked, but I'm not patient enough to listen to who it is. But you can, measure how you're speaking against this library and figure out, okay, this is how it's coming out or who's coming through. But I find it really fascinating that it is a specific kind of dialect that is, even though the words don't make sense, but it's the tonality, it's the repetition, it's just whatever. I remember the first time that I heard light language, somebody did it, and I was just talking to the group, and everything stopped. My body warmed up, and just tears. I was like homesick, like it was just home, and I don't know how to explain that. And then when I first was learning how to, being activated, learning how to do it, everything came out sounding kind of like Italian sounding in a way, like it was passionate.
Interesting.
And it was just so intense. And it was just like this longing or something, like this, like something had been taken away from me, and it was just being, rediscovered. And like, how was I getting by without this for so long? It was so strange. So
the majority of yours sounds either Asian or Inuit, shamanic, that kind of thing. Shamanic, like Japanese or shamanic.
Yeah, because it almost sounds like you go, because your brain, it's hard because you can't, if you can just sit and enjoy it, like listening to sound waves, great. But there's so much of us, that we go, oh wait, but that word sounded like, and
we try to associate something with what you're hearing. Yeah, that's
I can't at all.
And if you just stop and go into your heart and feel it,
that's where to go with it. Yeah, that's where to go with it.
Yeah, because the mantis beings, they click.
Exactly.
They are upgrading,
translating that.
Right. They're upgrading our DNA. And so they click a lot, and it's really weird. So we have a friend, Judy, who's been on our podcast before, and she first started channeling 11th or 12th dimensional mantis beings. And as she's dropping in, you will start to hear her click. I'm like, oh, we're going to hear something from the mantis. And it's just so,
oh my gosh,
it's so funny. When he started, it's one thing to channel English, but when he started channeling other energies and things, it took me a long time not to just bust out laughing. I mean, I would bust out laughing because it's funny sounding and it sounds so different. All of them sound so different.
Yeah.
That's being very honest. They're very authentic there, Allison.
But it's just funny.
No,
it's like hearing something that you haven't heard before. And it's just,
I mean,
funny.
Yeah. I have a hard enough time with the English language that trying to learn another language would be impossible at this point. So,
well, and I find it like, it's just, I'm in awe when I hear you doing it, because there's so many different things that come in. It's not just this language. There are there's snapping. There's what is when you snap? Is that I
that's
was
a
like
clearing.
Okay, that was I was about to say. It's like it cuts something. It dissipates something because it always feels like when you do that, it's not just the sound. Like it feels like something just an absence of something suddenly.
It's an exclamation point at the end of a.
Clearing,
it's clearing. It's getting rid of it. It's dislodging it.
I surprise myself doing that in various circumstances, and it's something I cannot control. I just can't.
Like I can't even. I can barely.
You'll
click.
do that even just in a conversation as you're talking, having a conversational exchange, and there's something that's being cleared during that conversation. You'll do the snap and the that kind of thing. Yeah. So
and
that's neat. You're always on.
Yeah.
I think at times the energy is just so powerful that it just takes over the body when a clearing is needed.
Yeah.
I went into a touristic place years ago, 4 years ago, and this kept on going. And I was wondering why. Well, it made sense, thousands of tourists were passing through that building every day, and I think it was just too much for my body to take it. So I was just
discharging it that way. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of ideal clients for you? Like with your Yana healing, who do you enjoy helping, or who would be a good candidate, I guess? Who would be a good candidate for healing for you?
First of all, a good candidate is someone who understands that it's not just a physical body that is in a state of imbalance. And understands that there is also a need of work and attention in the mind and emotions. So that is my one desire that I put in the universe, that the universe sends these clients to me. And I enjoy helping people that went through surgery, because I think there's a lot of clearing needed after surgeries. And also with light language, we can connect back the energy channels, which can be disconnected through surgery. And also if people had an organ removed, let's say even a tooth, we have to work on the etheric field. And I think I'm most helpful there, with people who went through a surgery or they have an illness, but they are ready to work with their mind and their emotions.
So I'm curious, if somebody, like say they lose a hand or an arm or something, and you talk about the etheric field where I guess that's the area where you feel like you have the ghost.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. You need to work on that.
And then that can heal. So you don't have that funky kind of, that's actually really huge, because other than the only other thing I've heard that people can actually do for that is that mirror thing, where they put a mirror up to your arm. And so it makes you feel like your mind, and you begin to work through the reasoning of this is no longer here, because otherwise it's hard to.
Yeah. But you say this is no longer there, but actually the energetic part is still there.
And that's why they're feeling it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to work on.
That's
and a lot of women have hysterectomies or breasts removed because of cancer. But this doesn't mean that the imbalance, the energetic imbalance, was taken out when the organ was taken out. So there needs to be attention put, in the energetic field, because every organ has like an energetic double, and we need to work with that. And I give the example of teeth, we pull out teeth and we put implants and so on, but we need to see what caused that teeth to go bad, or that tooth.
Because it's usually a lot more than what people.
Yes.
They're usually, aren't they very symbolic? Like, I mean, it's really intense.
And they're connected to the energy channels and so on. So, I think this is an area where I can be helpful.
That's huge. For some reason, that makes me think that back, when there were more shamans working, more ancient civilizations, I think that they knew that stuff.
Yes.
That is resonating with me. Like that was something that was just immediately, you took something out and you prayed, you worked with the energy, you did,
We only know a fraction of what we know.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we only remember a fraction of what,
My desire and wish is that what I do one day will be in hospitals.
I was about to say, you're going to start your own whole clinic that's going to become a way of teaching. And then you're going to have your people all in these different, wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, you know how you have your doctor visiting you and the various nurses, and then you can have maybe an acupuncture doctor or a herbalist or someone who works with bees or whatever is helpful for you, and also someone who works with energy.
Yeah.
And we need to bring them.
We need holistic
together.
hospitals.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Well,
Is that what integrative medicine does, or not really? Is it just that more that
it does, but it's still on the
Rockefeller spectrum?
I think it
I'm
does.
sorry.
It's still on the paradigm.
The doctor, we just met Dr. Jim Roach, and he has a beautiful holistic and integrative space in Kentucky. And so he not only heals using his medical background, but also through botanicals and vitamins and minerals and supplements and prayer and affirmation and whether it's a channeling session, he'll recommend all of that, acupuncture. So so looking at the human as a holistic energy and physical being and treating it as such, not just assuming it's a physical issue that can be treated.
It's never.
It's never. It's never.
Right.
It's just one small symptom. Yes.
Yeah.
Everything that manifests in the physical starts as an energetic, and
It is.
it isn't, because we're not paying attention enough to clear it energetically, that it has to come out physically. Our body is really working with us, although we want to be angry at our body for showing us these injuries, but it's because we're not paying attention often.
Right.
Can't remember how many times I've heard people get a sprained ankle because they're not slowing down. Their higher self is telling them, slow down, stop what you're doing.
You guys know Diana. She just went down a flight of stairs.
Oh, no.
Because she said, my bad. I was told I should slow down. I didn't. She was doing literally 3 different things and thinking about something else as she's walking down the stairs.
There you go.
Yeah, I earned it.
Yeah.
But it isn't that we need to throw out mainstream medical, because what we'll hear from higher selves all the time is that you need to clear the energetic first, because that's really exacerbating, and that was the origin.
Because it'll just come back.
And once the energetic is cleared, then there may be a remnant left in the physical that can be addressed. But if you go to a mainstream medical doctor to begin with, they can't really even diagnose or see correctly, because the energetic is so
You'll go
profound.
in complaining about all kinds of stuff and come up with a clean bill of health. Well, I couldn't really find anything for you, but you can take these medicines to help your symptoms. That's because it's energetic. I mean, you're trying to have somebody diagnose something that is purely an energetic symptom.
Well, I'm thinking of cancer, and you can see, I mean, it's and feel where cancer is coming from.
Sure.
And somebody goes in and they get, all of those horrible, ways of killing all the cancer cells and stuff, but they haven't dealt with the energetics of it. And the person just has it pop up somewhere else, oh, it's a surprise. And I'm like,
no,
that's not a surprise. I mean, it's just kind of when's that going to happen?
Exactly.
It just,
and I believe we cannot separate nutrition and all that.
Right.
Well, I so see you doing that.
I hope so. Yeah.
But that was one of the things I learned from you. Talk to us about what are the other things, though, that need to be cleared that we don't even think about? Like if somebody had surgery, we're not just talking about clearing the wound. We're talking about the surgical room and the instruments. Talk to us about all that.
Yeah, it's a whole plethora of things that needs to be cleared. First of all is the energy of the doctors and all the medical team around them, because they literally put their energy in your body, and that leaves an imprint. And then it's very important to clear the vibration of anesthetics, because you go out, and
God, and what about the tools?
Yes,
the things that all those tools do, and the energy they're holding on to.
Yeah, exactly.
From all the different surgeries, and they've all been autoclaved each cycle, and they're retaining all that energy.
Oh my God.
At the point at which they touch
so
you.
it's the tools, is the procedure, is the energy of the various drugs that are being used besides the anesthesia. And then you need to disconnect, which I think is very important, from the vibration of the collective of people that share the same illness.
Oh.
Because in that, collective cloud, people put thoughts and emotions. And
Wow.
if you're going through something,
Oh.
you put the something in that cloud, but you need to disconnect and connect to a cloud of people that are healed.
Mm.
So
That is huge, because there's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
those survivor networks, and then people sit there like and focus on, like, it amazes me how women who've gone through, you know, breast cancer stuff, and then they stay
Sorry.
within
Yes.
that, and they see, well, who's survived, who's dying, who's, you know, oh, that's so sad, and your heart just breaks and
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
for whatever reason, I can't go there. And it's not that I don't have empathy. It's energetically, I can't, I've never been able, and in my family, breast cancer and ovarian cancer historically skip generations, and we've been studied by this hospital and stuff. And my mom always said, oh, don't worry, they'll reach out to you when it comes your time that they want to, you know, start like testing you and stuff. And the thing is, I was just like, that's not my reality.
Right.
And by this age, you know, my mom had already had her hysterectomy, and all my
Oh.
aunts, and I have a cousin who I thought was getting a double mastectomy preemptively.
No.
And then
that's
she's not
tragic.
even doing like any
Yeah.
of the energy stuff. Like, I'm just going horrified. And so I'm just like, I can't connect with all of that.
Yeah.
And another important aspect is how you talk about it, because a lot of people say, I'm fighting cancer.
Yes, you're reading my mind.
My
Exactly.
body is, yes.
Exactly. But I say, we're not fighting anything. We're not resisting anything. We are going pro longevity, pro health, pro life, pro joy, instead of fighting and being
Right.
in a war with whatever that is.
Right.
Gotta lessen the
And
energy
also
thing.
another very important part is understanding the benefits of the illness, whatever that is. And I'll give you just one example, which was I discovered it in a session with a client recently. I asked her to do this internal exercise. What are the benefits of your cancer?
Mm.
And she said, well, if I have cancer, I don't have to take care of my older mom.
Mm.
This is a very interesting benefit,
Wow.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You get rid of it. And I said, you know, it's just so interesting how our mind can manifest these things into our body just to help us escape something that we don't like, or we dread, or we are
Mm.
afraid of.
Mhm.
But these are the benefits of illnesses. And I think it's very important to be extremely honest with yourself,
Mm.
whatever you're going through, and say, ooh, how is this illness helping me? Am I getting more attention from my family? Am I getting
Mm.
free money? Because
They talk
from the
about
government?
secondary benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Am I finally the center of attention, and I don't need to do housework and all the chores I don't like?
Mm.
Do my kids call me more? I don't have to clean the house. There are so many benefits.
Well, my dad had a business part in his OBGYN practice. And this guy, apparently he bemoaned being a gynecologist. Like, he wanted out of it so badly. And, he just couldn't wait for the day to retire. And he finally decided, no, I'm going to retire now, made the decision. But he had spent so much time with that whole thing going on that he ends up like finding out before he retires that he has cancer.
Yeah. the resistance.
It just builds up. It's like when people say, oh, this job's killing me.
Mm,
It's
yep.
killing you.
Yep,
It's
it
killing you.
is. If you're saying it.
So just, can you give a brief, maybe helpful nugget for people that may be going into, say, even the dentist or into the hospital for a small procedure or something, they can do preemptively
Yes.
to help themselves,
Yes.
to help do that?
So if you have to go, the first thing that I recommend to everyone is connect with that building, that medical team, all the procedure, and ask for blessings for everyone, and may them be guided by higher beings of in their medical teams, because every dentist, every doctor has a guide, an angel that works with him or her. And ask for Archangel's Raphael help, and do your thing, with many times people do it with fear instead of being grateful that we live in times when there's so much technology and so much help around us. I was talking to a client 2 days ago, and she was complaining about her teeth and it's going on. I said, 200 years ago, you would have been dead from this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You cannot get an implant.
Or you would have been going to the blacksmith.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. We have to see the good part also. There's a good part in all this technology that we have right now. And after you're done with whatever you have to done, ask for a clearing, disconnect from all that, but also with a state of gratitude and grace. And then just be honest with yourself and ask your body, what are you trying to tell me? What is the message you're trying to tell me? What is the emotion that is sitting in my tooth, in my liver, in my arms, in my skin? And is there something I refuse to see or know? And just ask for complete honesty from your heart, and your heart will tell you it's impossible.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are good, actionable things. Thank you.
And then if you feel you cannot do it, find someone you resonate with and ask for help, because sometimes it's very important to work with someone just because they can ask you questions you never thought about, or just because they have an easier intuitive access and so on. But my belief is that everyone can understand what a body is saying if they just slow down and tune in and listen to it.
Yeah.
I like that expectation.
Well, as usual, the hour flies by when we have exciting guests. And I wanted to ask about perhaps a little bit of light language as a blessing for our audience. How do you think that'll sound, Will, on those?
Well, give me just a second.
So I think we've got Zoom all worked out, right, Will?
Yep.
So we'll let Maria, she's agreed to do a light language blessing for us and our audience. So if you'd like to sit with your eyes closed if you're not driving and just relax for a moment.
And can you have your eyes open as well?
Yeah,
sure.
And sometimes it's really like, I'm very curious about it. So I love seeing the movements, and it's so
to
beautiful.
watch. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's true. Good
Yes.
point.
Okay, so I will ask for a light language blessing for all of us and for whoever is listening. And we ask for this energy to come from the highest place of truth, love, compassion, and divine healing. And this energy is the best for our bodies, for our minds, for our hearts, for our souls. And I'm hearing to let out light language that is supporting in being honest and truthful with ourselves, and also have the courage to see the truth. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh. Shikina nakita kushkita tina nakushkita tina nakita taka shuya na nakita taka shikina nakutikina nakita kushkina nanina nana shikina nakita tatakutikita takushkina nakita toyana nakia esakina nakushkita tina nakushki shu kita takita kushkin kit kut Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. How can people
inviting me?
How can people find you?
They can find me on my site, which is yanahealing.com, or they can find me on TikTok, or they can find me on Facebook or Instagram.
Awesome.
All under Yana Healing?
Yana Healing,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. And we'll put that in the description, of course.
Thank you.
And we thank you all in our audience for spending your time with us and tuning in. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought or how that light language impacted you. But until next time, thank you for being with us on Out on a Limb podcast.
See you guys.
Ciao.